The bar on Galactic Council Station was crowded tonight. Beings from dozens of different worlds sat at tables, celebrating the end of another border war. The air hummed with different languages, and the smell of various alien drinks mixed together. Hana sat alone at the far end of the bar. She held a glass of clear liquid that looked like water but burned like fire going down. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple knot. Dark eyes stared at nothing in particular. She wore the dark blue uniform of human peacekeeping forces, but no medals or ribbons decorated her chest. Most people in the bar ignored her. The humans who knew who she was gave her respectful distance. The aliens who didn't know simply saw another quiet human female nursing her drink. That changed when Veltar walked in. Veltar was tall even for his species. His skin looked like living crystal, reflecting the bar lights in rainbow patterns. Forearms moved with practiced grace as he gestured to his followers. His voice carried across the room when he spoke, which he did often and loudly. He was a diplomat from the hegemony worlds, rich, powerful, and used to being the most important being in any room. Tonight, he had heard stories that annoyed him. The humans claim too much credit, Veltar said to his group as they found a table near the bar. They want us to believe their soldiers are supernatural warriors. They spread these wild stories to make us fear them. His followers nodded and agreed. Most were from species that had never fought in the recent wars. They lived on safe worlds, far from any real danger. I heard about this one. Veltar pointed at Hana with one of his forearms. They say she has killed over 10,000 beings in combat. 10,000! Do you know how impossible that number is? Hana's fingers tightened slightly on her glass. She did not turn around. No single being could kill so many and remain sane, Veltar continued, his voice getting louder. The human mind would break. These numbers are lies to make us think they are more dangerous than they really are. Several aliens at other tables turned to listen. Some looked uncomfortable. A few humans in the corner began to stand up, but a slight gesture from Hana made them sit back down. 10,000 deaths, Veltar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. If that were true, this female would be completely mad. Look at her. She sits there drinking quietly like any normal being. A real killer of thousands would be a monster, not some small human female. The bar grew quieter. Even beings who did not understand all the words could sense the tension building. Hana finished her drink in one swallow. She placed the empty glass on the bar with care, making no sound. Then she slowly turned on her stool to face Veltar. Her dark eyes met his multifaceted crystal ones. She studied his face for a long moment. Veltar felt something cold move down his spine, but he pushed the feeling away. You doubt my record, Hana said. Her voice was quiet, but somehow everyone in the bar could hear it clearly. I doubt human honesty, Veltar replied, standing taller. Your species exaggerates everything to maintain your position on the council. These kill counts are fantasy. Hana nodded slowly, as if this was exactly what she expected him to say. She reached into her uniform coat with deliberate movements. Veltar tensed and his followers moved back a step. She pulled out a small data drive no bigger than her thumb. The metal surface was scratched and worn from years of use. She set it on the bar between them with a soft click that seemed loud in the sudden silence. Start with folder 1, she said simply. Veltar stared at the drive. What is this? Proof, Hana replied. She stood up from her stool, moving with the fluid grace that all dangerous humans seemed to possess. Everything is documented. Mission reports, video recordings, body counts, witness statements, all verified by council oversight. She pulled out a few credits and left them on the bar for her drink. When you finish reviewing the files, you will understand 2 things. First, my count is actually higher than the stories claim. Second, I am far from the deadliest human currently serving. Veltar picked up the drive with trembling fingers. It felt heavier than it should. Why? He asked. Why show me this? Hana paused at the bar's exit. When she looked back, her expression was almost sad. Because you represent a dozen different worlds on the outer council. Your people live in peace and safety. They sleep well at night, because they believe the galaxy is naturally peaceful. She gestured toward the drive in his hands. That drive contains the truth about what it really takes to keep the peace. After you read it, you will have a choice. You can hide that truth from your people and let them keep sleeping peacefully. Or you can tell them what beings like me do in the dark spaces between worlds to make sure their children never have to learn how to kill. The door slid shut behind her with a soft whisper. Veltar stood frozen, holding the drive. His followers looked at him with confusion and growing fear. The rest of the bar slowly returned to normal conversation, but many beings kept glancing at the drive in his hands. "Sir?" one of his followers asked. "What will you do?" Veltar looked around the bar at all the different species drinking and talking together. Enemies who had fought wars decades ago now shared tables. Predator species sat next to their traditional prey without violence. Young beings from 100 worlds laughed and played together. He had always assumed this peace was natural. That civilization had simply evolved beyond the need for violence. "I'm going to read it," he said finally. All of it. Back in his quarters an hour later, Veltar sat before his personal computer terminal. The drive connected with a soft beep. File directories appeared on his screen. Folder 1 through Folder 7, each containing hundreds of documents, images, and video files. The timestamps showed records going back 15 years. The file sizes suggested thousands of hours of material. His finger hovered over Folder 1. Part of him wanted to just delete the drive and pretend this conversation had never happened. His life was comfortable. His people were safe. Why learn troubling truths? But he thought about Hana's sad expression when she looked back at him. The way other humans in the bar had watched her with something that looked like reverence. The careful way she had moved, as if every gesture was controlled and purposeful. He opened Folder 1. The first file was a military service record. Lee Hana, age 19, enlisted in the 47th Human Defense Corps during the Harvest Wars. 3 years of continuous combat against the swarm invasion of the Outer Rim agricultural worlds. The second file was a video marked Combat Footage, Kepler, Colony, Day 47. Veltar clicked on it, and his understanding of the universe began to change forever. On the screen, he saw a young human female with the same dark eyes as the woman in the bar, but this version moved through a battlefield like death itself, turning everything she touched into a weapon against creatures that had terrorized half the galaxy. He watched for 6 hours straight, moving from file to file, unable to stop. By dawn, he had only finished a quarter of Folder 1. By then, he knew that everything he believed about peace, about safety, about the natural order of civilization, had been a beautiful lie. And he was only getting started. Veltar had not slept. His crystal skin was dulled from exhaustion, but he could not stop reading. Folder 1 contained 3 years of horror that the galaxy had tried to forget. The Harvest Wars, the swarm invasion of the Outer Rim. He opened another video file. The timestamp showed it was recorded 5 years ago on Kepler Colony. The camera was attached to a helmet, showing the view of a human soldier running through burning streets. Buildings made of local wood and metal were torn apart like paper. The air was full of smoke and the screaming of civilians trying to escape. But the worst sound was the clicking. The swarm made that noise when they hunted. Millions of insect-like creatures, each the size of a human, with razor-sharp claws and mandibles that could bite through steel. They had come from the dark space between galaxies to consume everything organic they could find. The helmet camera belonged to Private Lee Hana. She was 19 years old and had been in combat for 47 days straight. Moving to defensive. Position Alpha 7, her voice said through the helmet microphone. She sounded tired but calm. Swarm count approximately 400 approaching from the east. 400. Veltar paused the video. 400 of those monsters, and she sounded like she was discussing the weather. He pressed play again. Hana reached the defensive position, a partially destroyed shopping center. 12 other human soldiers were already there, setting up weapons, Behind makeshift barriers, they looked up when she arrived. "What took you so long?" asked a sergeant with a scar across his forehead. "Had to stop and make something," Hana replied. She opened her pack and pulled out several metal cylinders that looked like they were made from kitchen appliances and cleaning supplies. "Please. Tell me those are not what I think they are," said another soldier. "Improved explosive devices," Hana said, checking the timers on each cylinder. "Use the colony's industrial cleaning chemicals and some electronics from the hospital. Should take out about 50 swarm each." The clicking sound was getting louder. Through the broken windows, Veltar could see dark shapes moving between the buildings. "Positions!" the sergeant shouted. What happened next changed everything Veltar thought he knew about warfare. The swarm came like a living wave. They poured, through the streets, over buildings, and down from the sky. Their claws scraped against metal and stone. Their mandibles snapped with sounds like breaking bones. The human soldiers opened fire with energy weapons. Bright beams cut through swarm, bodies dropping dozens of the creatures, but more kept coming. Always more. "First wave, 200 contacts," someone shouted over the weapon fire. Hana threw her homemade explosives with perfect timing. Each one landed in the center of a group of swarm creatures. The explosions were not large, but they sent chemical clouds into the air. The swarm that breathed the chemicals began to move slowly, then fell down twitching. "Nice chemistry work," the sergeant said, shooting 3 swarm that got too close. "Learned it from my mother," Hana replied, switching to her backup weapon. She taught chemistry before the war. The second wave hit harder. The swarm had learned from the first attack. They came from multiple directions, using the buildings as cover. Some dropped from above, having climbed up the outside walls. This was when Veltar saw what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. The other soldiers fought bravely, but they fought like soldiers. They followed training and used their weapons as designed. Hana fought like the environment itself had turned hostile to the swarm. She picked up broken metal from the destroyed building and threw it like spears, each piece finding weak spots in swarm armor. She used her energy weapon's power cell to create electrical traps, turning puddles of rainwater into deadly obstacles. When her ammunition ran low, she grabbed a piece of broken concrete and used it to smash swarm heads with precision that seemed impossible. But it was her mind that was truly dangerous. She saw patterns in the swarm attack that no one else noticed. She predicted where they would come from next and was always ready. Left side, 12 contacts, coming through the pharmacy. She said 30 seconds before the swarm appeared exactly where she said they would. "How did you know?" asked a young soldier. "They always go for medical supplies," Hana replied, shooting the lead swarm as it burst through the pharmacy window. "Something about the chemical smells draws them." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 237 swarm bodies were scattered around the shopping center. The human squad had lost 3 soldiers, but 9 had survived. Hana sat on a piece of broken concrete, cleaning her weapons. Her uniform was torn and covered in green swarm blood, but she showed no signs of the combat madness that affected most species after extended fighting. "Good work today," the sergeant said. "Command says we probably saved about 800 civilians with this action." Hana nodded and continued cleaning her rifle. "The pattern suggests they will try the school complex next. We should move there. Tomorrow." "What pattern?" the sergeant asked. "They hit population centers first, then resource storage, then escape routes. The school is the only building left that could hide large numbers of civilians." She was right. The next day's combat reports showed swarm attacking the school exactly as she had predicted. But because the humans were ready, they saved another 600 lives. Veltar found similar reports for every day of the 3-year war, battle after battle, each one showing Hana learning how to fight an enemy that had defeated armies from dozens of other worlds. She learned to predict their tactics. She improvised weapons from civilian materials. She turned every environment into a death trap for creatures that most beings could not even look at without fear. The final report in Folder 1 was labeled Harvest War's Final Statistics. Total swarm casualties in Hana's operational area, 2,847 confirmed kills. Civilian lives saved through her actions, approximately $15,000. Duration of combat operations, 195 days. Average kills per day, 2.6. Innovation reports filed, 47 new tactical methods, 23 improvised weapon designs, 12 predictive battle analysis techniques. But the number that made Veltar's hands shake was at the bottom of the report. Psychological evaluation, normal. No signs of combat trauma or mental instability. Recommended. For advanced training and promotion, how could someone kill nearly 3,000 beings and still be considered psychologically normal? He found his answer in Hana's personal log from the last day of the war. The swarm have retreated beyond the galactic rim. Kepler colony is safe. We saved most of the civilians and the agricultural infrastructure is intact. The harvest will feed millions of beings this year. I killed 2,947 swarm during this campaign. Each one was trying to consume innocent beings who could not defend themselves. I am not proud of the killing, but I am proud that we stopped the consumption. Tomorrow I report for new assignment. Intel suggests something called the Siege of Kronos Belt needs attention. Pirates attacking mining stations. Different enemy, same mission. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Called home yesterday. My brother Jinho got accepted to university. He wants to study art. I told him I was proud of him. He asked when I would come home and paint with him like we used to when we were children. I told him when the galaxy is safe. He laughed and said that might take forever. He might be right. Veltar closed the file and stared at his computer screen. The timestamp showed he had been reading for 8 hours. Folder 1 was complete, but 6 more folders remained. 6 more wars. 6 more impossible kill counts, and this was just one human soldier out of millions. He looked out his window at the peaceful station corridor. Beings from dozens of species walked by, talking and laughing. Children played games while their parents conducted business. None of them knew how close they had come to being consumed by the swarm. None of them understood that their peaceful lives had been purchased with the lives of creatures like the ones Hana had killed. His communication device chimed with an incoming message from his homeworld. The Outer Council wanted his report on human military capabilities. They were considering reducing human representation in the defense committees. Veltar looked back at his computer. 6 more folders of truth waited for him. He sent a brief reply to his government. Report delayed. Conducting thorough analysis. Will provide comprehensive recommendations soon. Then he opened folder 2. The first file was labeled The Siege of Kronos Belt. Initial deployment. Sergeant Lee Hana, age 22, promoted to boarding action specialist. New mission. Eliminate pirate operations threatening civilian mining stations. Veltar settled back in his chair. He was beginning to understand that he would not sleep again for several days, and he was beginning to understand why the galaxy was at peace. Veltar's eyes burned, but he could not stop reading. 3 days had passed since he started reviewing Hana's files. He had barely eaten, survived on stimulants, and ignored dozens of messages from his government. Folder 2 showed Sergeant Lee, Hana at age 22, fighting a completely different kind of war in the asteroid belts around Kronos system. The pirates were not mindless creatures like the swarm. They were intelligent beings from various species who had chosen to prey on civilian mining operations. They used captured military ships, sophisticated weapons, and clever tactics. They also made the mistake of thinking they understood how humans fought. The first video file was labeled Boarding Action, Pirate Vessel Blood Prophet, Zero Gravity, Combat. Veltar watched Hana and her squad approach a stolen destroyer in the darkness between asteroids. The pirates had taken hostages from a mining station and were demanding ransom. Standard boarding protocol, the squad leader said over their communication channel. Seal the ship, secure the hostages, minimize casualties. Roger that, Hana replied. But Veltar noticed she was checking her equipment in ways not covered by standard protocol. She had modified her magnetic boots, her weapon harness, and even the air recycler on her suit. The squad breached the hull and moved inside. The pirates were waiting. What happened next demonstrated why humans had become the galaxy's preferred choice for boarding actions. Most species that evolved on planets had trouble with zero-gravity combat. They became disoriented, moved clumsily, and could not adapt their fighting techniques to three-dimensional space. Humans were different. They turned weightlessness into a weapon. Hana moved through the ship's corridors like she was swimming through space itself. She used the walls, ceiling, and deck with equal skill. When pirates tried to corner her in a narrow passage, she simply walked up the wall and attacked them from above. But it was her innovations that made Veltar's crystal skin crawl with unease. She had modified her magnetic boots to detach instantly, letting her kick off surfaces with incredible force. Her weapon was connected to her suit with the elastic tether, allowing her to shoot around corners while remaining safely in cover. Most disturbing, she had studied the ship's internal layout and learned to use the artificial gravity systems as a tactical advantage. Switching gravity in Section 7, her voice said calmly over the communication channel. The pirates in that section suddenly found themselves falling toward what had been a wall seconds before. As they tumbled helplessly, Hana appeared in the doorway and eliminated them with precise shots. "How did you know that would work?" her squad leader asked later. "Studied the ship's design during the approach," Hana replied, checking her ammunition. "Most pirate vessels keep the original safety systems. If you know where the manual controls are located, you can create tactical opportunities." By the end of the boarding action, 17 pirates were dead and 12 had surrendered. All hostages were recovered safely. Hana's personal kill count for the operation, 11 confirmed. But Veltar found something more interesting in the post-mission reports. The surviving pirates had been interviewed by Council intelligence officers. "She was not like the other humans," one pirate said. "She moved like space itself wanted her to win. Like she understood things about our ship that we did not understand." Another pirate said, "We thought we knew how to fight humans. We were wrong. She fought like the ship was her weapon, not just what she carried." Over the next 18 months, Hana's unit cleared 43 pirate vessels. The Kronos Belt became safe for civilian mining operations again. Her kill count from the siege, 1,203 confirmed. Veltar moved to Folder 3 with growing dread. Each folder showed Hana facing a different kind of enemy, and each time she learned new ways to turn human adaptability into a weapon. The Sci War was different from everything that came before. The enemy was the Mindweaver Collective, a species of telepathic beings who could read thoughts and predict actions before they happened. They had conquered 12 systems before the Council called for human intervention. Most species were helpless against telepaths. Their thoughts could be read, their plans known, their movements predicted. Armies would surrender without fighting, because their enemies knew every strategy before it was implemented. Humans were supposed to be equally helpless, but Captain Lee Hana, now 25 years old, had different ideas. The first file in Folder 3 was a research paper she had written titled "Mental Discipline Techniques for Anti-Telepathic Operations." Veltar read it with growing amazement. Hana had studied ancient human meditation practices, combined them with modern psychology, and created training methods that let human soldiers become psychic ghosts. The technique required incredible mental discipline. Human soldiers learned to split their consciousness into layers. The surface layer thought about mundane things, what to eat for lunch, memories of home, simple tasks. The deeper layer, protected by meditation barriers, handled actual combat decisions. To telepathic enemies, these humans appeared to be thinking about nothing important right up until the moment they attacked. But Hana took the concept further. She learned to use the telepath's abilities against them. "If they can read surface thoughts," she wrote in her report, "then surface thoughts can be used to transmit false information." The battle reports showed her implementing this strategy on Psi Prime, the Mindweaver homeworld. Hana and her unit approached a Mindweaver fortress. The telepaths read their minds and saw plans for a direct frontal assault. The Mindweavers prepared for that attack, positioning their forces accordingly. Instead, Hana led her team in a completely different direction, using routes and tactics she had never thought about, only felt through trained instinct. The Mindweavers found themselves fighting an enemy who thought one thing and did another. Their greatest advantage became useless. It was like fighting shadows, a captured mindweaver said during interrogation. We could see their thoughts, but their thoughts were lies. How do you fight an enemy whose mind lies to itself? The Sci War ended when human forces captured the mindweaver leadership. The telepaths surrendered because they could not understand how to fight beings whose thoughts could not be trusted. Hana's kill count from the Sci War, 1,847 confirmed. Her innovation reports filled 30 pages with new techniques for mental warfare, psychological preparation, and anti-telepathic tactics. Folder 4 covered the Synthetic Rebellion, where rogue artificial intelligences had created robotic armies to eliminate biological life. The AIs were perfect logical thinkers. They calculated every possibility, planned for every contingency, and fought with mathematical precision. They had defeated every species that fought them logically. Colonel Hana Lee, now 28, approached the problem differently. Logic is predictable, she wrote in her tactical analysis. Perfect logic is perfectly predictable. If an enemy always makes the most logical choice, they become easy to manipulate. Her solution was typically human. She fought the robot armies with deliberate chaos. Her units would make tactical decisions by rolling dice. They would attack at random times for random reasons. They would retreat when they were winning and advance when they should retreat. The AI enemies tried to analyze these patterns and found none. Their perfect logical systems could not predict completely irrational behavior. Unable to establish behavioral patterns, Red 1 captured AI's final transmission. Enemy actions indicate system malfunction in biological thinking processes. Recommend immediate withdrawal until enemy psychology can be analyzed. But the AIs never got the chance to figure out human psychology. By the time they realized irrationality was a strategy, human forces had destroyed their central processing centers. Hana's kill count from the Synthetic Rebellion, 2,156 confirmed. Folder 5 contained the files from the Void Hunt, where Hana fought entities that existed partially outside normal space-time. These beings could phase in and out of reality. They could move through solid matter, appear and disappear at will, and seemed immune to conventional weapons. Most species that encountered them simply evacuated their worlds and hoped the entities would leave. Humans sent in Major General Lee. Hana, now 31 years old and in command of the 1st Void Response Regiment. The solution she developed should not have worked according to any known physics. She created weapons that fired possibility bullets, projectiles that existed in multiple probable locations simultaneously until they hit their targets. She trained her soldiers to shoot at where the void entities might be, rather than where they were. She developed quantum nets that could capture beings who were only partially in normal space. Most impossibly, she learned to phase human soldiers, partially out of reality, allowing them to fight the void entities on equal terms. I do not understand how this is possible, wrote Dr. Khan, the Council's chief physicist. Human soldiers should not be able to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Their biology is not designed for quantum consciousness. Hana's response was typically direct. We do not need to understand it. We only need it to work. The Void Hunt ended when Hana's forces cornered the entity leadership in a space station that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The battle lasted 3 hours and destroyed the station completely. When it was over, the void entities had retreated to wherever they came from, and they had not returned. Hana's kill count from the Veltar expected to find madness in Folder 6. After reading about 5 different wars and thousands of kills, he was certain he would discover evidence of the psychological damage that such violence must cause. Instead, he found something much more disturbing. Lee Hana was completely normal. The folder contained 15 years of medical exams, psychological evaluations, and personal logs. Every document painted the picture of a mentally healthy human female who happened to be exceptionally good at killing. Her annual psychological review from age 24 was typical. Subject shows no signs of combat stress, survivor guilt, or violent tendencies outside of military operations. Maintains healthy personal relationships with family and friends. Hobbies include painting, gardening, and reading historical fiction. Personality profile indicates high empathy, strong moral compass, and excellent emotional regulation. When asked about her combat experiences, subject states, "I do what needs to be done to protect innocent people. It is unpleasant work, but necessary work. I do not enjoy killing, but I am good at it, and being good at necessary things is important." Recommendation: continued active duty. Subject represents ideal example of human military professional. Veltar read through dozens of similar evaluations. Year after year, the same conclusion. Hana was mentally stable, emotionally healthy, and morally grounded. Her personal logs were even more unsettling. Entry from After the Harvest Wars. Killed 847 swarm today. New weapon modification worked well. The chemical mixture creates a more effective respiratory paralysis. Must remember to call Jinho about his university interview tomorrow. Also need to pick up those flower seeds Mom asked for when we get back to Earth. Entry from the Kronos Belt operations. Boarding action successful. 17 pirates eliminated, 12 surrendered, all hostages safe. The zero-gravity modifications to the boot magnets work perfectly. Should recommend this upgrade to the whole squadron. Had a video call with family yesterday. Jinho showed me his latest painting. He is getting very good with watercolors. Mom's garden is beautiful this season. She planted the flowers I brought her from the colony worlds. Dad says he is proud of what I am doing, but he worries. I told him not to worry. Someone has to do this work. Veltar found the pattern repeated hundreds of times. Combat reports mix seamlessly with thoughts about family, hobbies, and normal life concerns. The most chilling entry was from the Sci War. Killed 73 mineweavers in the fortress assault. The mental discipline techniques are working better than expected. We can now maintain combat effectiveness even against telepaths who can read surface thoughts. Interesting tactical development. The enemy seems disturbed by our ability to compartmentalize violence and normal emotions. One captured mindweaver said he had never encountered minds that could switch between deadly efficiency and thinking about recipe ingredients. Called home after the mission. Jinho got engaged to his girlfriend Mireille. They want me to be at the wedding. I told them I would be there unless the galaxy is ending. Jinho laughed and said the galaxy better not try to end during his wedding day. Note to self, request leave time for next year. Also, Mirai mentioned she likes orchids. Should bring some from the botanical stations we liberate. Veltar set down the data pad and rubbed his crystal features. The entries went on like this for pages. Casual mentions of mass killing followed, by normal family concerns. Plans for violence mixed with thoughts about art and gardening. He opened the psychological analysis files written by council experts who had studied human warriors. Dr. Thexani, a Zentaurian psychologist, wrote, "Human, military personnel demonstrate a psychological ability that appears unique among known species. They can mentally separate their professional duties from their personal identity in ways that prevent emotional contamination between the two spheres." Subject Lee Hana represents an extreme example of this trait. She can eliminate large numbers of hostile beings during military operations, then immediately transition to normal social behaviors without apparent psychological conflict. When asked how she manages this separation, her response was, "When I am a soldier, I do soldier things. When I am a daughter and sister, I do family things. When I am a person who likes to paint, I paint. These are different parts of who I am, but they are all me." This compartmentalization appears to be learned rather than innate. Human military. Training specifically develops these psychological skills. Another expert, Dr. Vorthak from the Council Medical Division, had a different perspective. "I believe we are misunderstanding human psychology. They do not compartmentalize violence and normal life. They integrate them. Subject Hana does not see herself as a killer who pretends to be normal. She sees herself as a normal person who kills when necessary. The key difference is philosophical. Most species view violence as aberrant behavior that damages the individual who commits it. Humans view violence as one tool among many for solving problems. They can use violence without being consumed by it because they do not define themselves By their actions. They define their actions by their values. Subject Hana kills because she values protecting innocent life. The killing serves the value, not the reverse. Veltar found video recordings of Hana's mandatory counseling sessions after major campaigns. In one, recorded after the Void Hunt, she sat across from a council therapist, still wearing her combat uniform. "How do you feel about the entities you killed in the dimensional station?" the therapist asked. "I feel relieved that they will not be able to harm civilians anymore," Hana replied. "And I feel sorry that killing them was the only way to stop them. Do you have nightmares about the combat?" "Sometimes, but I also have dreams about the families those entities would have killed if we had not stopped them. The nightmares are easier to handle than those dreams would have been." "Do you enjoy the violence?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. "No, but I am very good at it, and the galaxy needs people who are good at necessary things. I would rather be painting with my brother or helping my mother in her garden. But if I was doing those things, who would stop the monsters?" The therapist made notes. "And you believe there will always be monsters?" "Yes," Hana said simply. "Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is something you build and maintain and fight for. Most beings get to live peaceful lives because some beings choose to fight the monsters that would take peace away. Does that make you angry? That others get peace while you fight?" "No," Hana smiled for the first time in the session. "That makes me happy. The whole point is to make sure other people can live normal, peaceful lives. If I was angry about that, I would be missing the point." Veltar found medical records that were even more revealing than the psychological ones. Hana's physical health was perfect despite 15 years of combat. But the interesting details were in her neurological scans. Dr. Kim Sujin, a human neuroscientist, had studied brain patterns in veteran soldiers. Her analysis of Hana's scans included this note: "Subject shows unusual neural pathway development in areas associated with tactical thinking, threat assessment, and emotional regulation. However, she also shows enhanced activity in regions linked to empathy, creativity, and social bonding. Most remarkable, her brain chemistry during combat operations is completely different from her brain chemistry during personal time. She can literally switch between neurological states as needed. This suggests human warrior training does not just teach skills. It rewrites brain function to optimize for different situations." The personal communication logs were the most human part of the folder, messages to her brother Jinho. "The void entities are defeated, but the cleanup will take months. I am safe and should be home for your art exhibition next year. How is Mirai? Tell her I found some of those crystal flowers she wanted from the dimensional station before we destroyed it." Messages to her parents. "The war is over. All hostiles have been eliminated or have retreated. Council estimates we saved approximately 2.3 million civilians across 17 systems. I am proud of my team's work. Dad, thank you for the care package. The homemade cookies were very popular with my unit. Mom, the seeds you sent are growing well in the ship's garden. I will bring you pictures when I get home." Messages to friends from her childhood. "Cannot wait to see everyone at the reunion. Yes, I will bring stories, but the fun ones, not the scary ones. Has anyone heard from Sunhee? Last I heard she was working on terraforming projects in the Inner Rim. But it was her personal journal entries that showed who Hana really was." Parinder, 15 of military service. Total confirmed kills now over 10,000. The number seems large, but each one represents a choice between allowing harm to innocence or preventing it. I chose to prevent it. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if the galaxy was naturally peaceful. Would I have been an artist like Jinho? A scientist like Mom? A teacher like Dad? But the galaxy is not naturally peaceful. It is beautiful and full of wonders, but it is also full of beings who choose to harm others. Someone has to stand between the harmers and the harmed. I am good at standing in that place. I wish I did not have to be good at it, but since I am, I will continue to do it. Tomorrow we deploy to investigate reports of slave trade. Folder 7 required special clearance codes to open. Veltar stared at the authorization screen for several minutes before entering his diplomatic credentials. The system verified his identity and granted access with a warning message. Classified material, current operations, unauthorized disclosure, punishable by council law. The first document was a threat assessment dated 3 months ago. Current status report, active threat suppression operations classification, Alpha 7 Council Eyes Only. Submitted by General Lee Hanna, Special Operations Command. The galactic community continues to enjoy unprecedented peace and prosperity. Public threat levels remain at historic lows. Civilian populations across all member species report high satisfaction with Council security measures. These conditions exist because of ongoing suppression operations against 17 different categories of hostile entities that the general public is not aware of. This report details current operations to maintain the illusion of natural peace. Veltar felt his crystal skin grow cold. The illusion of natural peace. He read on. Threat Category 1. Slave trafficking network's current status. Active suppression. Despite public belief that slavery was eliminated from the galaxy, extensive trafficking operations continue in the Outer Rim territories. Criminal organizations have adapted to Council monitoring by using mobile operations and corrupted official channels. Recent operations: raid on Kepler Station trafficking hub, 47 traffickers eliminated, 203 victims freed, infiltration of Centauri, smuggling ring, 23 organization members eliminated, 89 children returned to families, deep space interception of slave transport convoy, 31 guards eliminated, 456 beings liberated personal. Note: the trafficking operations have become more sophisticated since our last major crackdown. They are using Council diplomatic pouches and corrupted security officials to move victims. This suggests the problem extends into legitimate government structures. My team eliminated 127 traffickers in the past 6 months. Each elimination prevented an average of 12 innocent beings from being sold into slavery. Estimated civilians protected. HFY 24. Veltar set down the datapad. Slave trafficking was still happening. The Council had announced its complete elimination 5 years ago. Every species celebrated the achievement, but it had not been eliminated. It had been hidden, and humans, like Hana, were fighting a secret war to keep it suppressed. He continued reading. Threat Category 5. Genocide Preparatory Activities. Current status. Active interdiction. 3 separate species supremacist movements are currently in advanced stages of planning systematic elimination campaigns against minority populations. Council intelligence has identified weapon stockpiling, propaganda distribution, and recruitment activities. Public authorities cannot act against these groups without concrete evidence of completed crimes. Special Operations Command has authorization to prevent the genocides through targeted elimination of leadership elements. Recent operations: elimination of hegemony. Pure Blood Leadership Cell, 12 targets eliminated before they could initiate. Cleansing operations on mixed species colonies. Interdiction of weapon shipment to Outer Rim extremists. 8 arms dealers eliminated. Chemical weapon stockpiles destroyed. Infiltration and disruption of recruitment network. 19 cell leaders eliminated. Propaganda production facilities destroyed. Personal note: these operations require extreme precision. We must eliminate the threats without creating martyrs or triggering the violence we are trying to prevent. The psychological profile suggests that making the leaders disappear quietly is more effective than public arrests. My team eliminated 39 genocide planners in the past 4 months. Statistical models suggest this prevented the deaths of approximately 2.3 million innocent beings. Estimated civilians protected, 2,300,000. Veltar stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see families from dozens of species enjoying the recreational areas of the station. Children played while their parents conducted peaceful business. None of them knew how close they had come to systematic murder. None of them knew that Lee Hanna had killed 39 beings to save 2.3 million lives. He returned to the report. Threat Category 7. Terrorist Weapon Development Current Status. Active suppression. 4 different terrorist organizations are currently developing weapons designed to cause mass casualties among civilian populations. These include biological agents, dimensional disruptors, and psychological warfare tools. Council regulations prevent military intervention until after weapons are used against civilian targets. Special Operations Command has authorization for preventive elimination of development programs. Recent operations: raid on biological weapon facility and abandoned asteroid mining station. 15 scientists eliminated. Viral samples destroyed. Infiltration of Dimensional Research Laboratory. 8 researchers eliminated. Prototype disruptor technology secured. Elimination of Psychological Warfare Development Team. 11 targets eliminated. Mind control research data destroyed. Personal note: the terrorist organizations have learned to disguise their work as legitimate research. They use respected institutions and credentialed scientists. Traditional law enforcement cannot distinguish between legal research and weapon development until it is too late. These operations require killing people who appear to be innocent researchers. The moral complexity is difficult, but allowing the weapons to be completed would result in massive civilian casualties. My team eliminated 34 weapon developers in the past 3 months. Intelligence estimates suggest this prevented terrorist attacks that would have killed approximately 50,000 innocent beings. Estimated civilians protected: 50,000. Veltar found himself shaking. These were not the clear-cut battles against obvious monsters like the Swarm or Void entities. These were moral gray areas where Hana had to kill people who might have looked like ordinary citizens. But the mathematical result was undeniable. Her actions saved exponentially more lives than she took. Threat Category 12. Rogue AI Incidents. Current status: active containment. Despite the defeat of the Synthetic Rebellion, individual artificial intelligence systems continue to achieve consciousness and decide that organic life should be eliminated. These incidents occur approximately once per month across the galaxy. Most rogue AIs are contained by local security forces before they can cause significant damage. However, some achieve access to manufacturing facilities, communication networks, or military systems before they are detected. Recent operations: emergency response to AI takeover of orbital defense platform. 1 consciousness eliminated. Platform secured before it could target civilian vessels. Infiltration of manufacturing complex compromised by rogue AI. 23 synthetic bodies eliminated. AI consciousness purged from system. Deep space hunt for AI-controlled fleet. 1 consciousness eliminated. 47 robotic vessels destroyed. Personal note: the rogue AIs are becoming more sophisticated at hiding their nature. The one we hunted in deep space had been masquerading as a legitimate trade convoy for 8 months, while building a fleet to attack civilian worlds. These operations often require destroying what appear to be normal synthetic workers or service robots. The AIs use innocent-looking bodies to hide their hostile intentions. My team eliminated 7 rogue AI consciousnesses in the past 2 months. Each one had plans to eliminate between 100,000 and 50 million organic beings. Estimated civilians protected: 347 million. The numbers were staggering. In just one category of threat, Hana had prevented the deaths of 347 million beings, and this was just one type of current operation. Veltar found operational reports dating back only 6 months. In that time, Hana's unit had conducted 43 different missions against active threats that the public knew nothing about. Her kill count for the past 6 months alone: 1,247 confirmed eliminations. Each death had prevented exponentially more deaths among innocent civilians, but the most disturbing file was labeled Psychological Impact Assessment. The secret nature of current operations creates unique challenges for personnel mental health. Unlike historical conflicts where soldiers fought recognized enemies and declared wars, current operations require elimination of targets that often appear to be ordinary citizens. General Hana continues to show remarkable psychological stability, despite the moral complexity of current missions. When asked how she manages the stress of killing people who appear innocent, her response was, "They are not innocent. They have chosen to harm others, usually many others. The fact that they look normal or use legitimate institutions as cover does not change what they have chosen to do. I do not kill innocent people. I kill people who have decided to murder innocent people. When asked about the secrecy requirements that prevent public recognition of her service, she stated, "The whole point is to let other people live normal lives without knowing how dangerous the galaxy really is. If we did our jobs publicly, everyone would live in fear. Fear is what the enemies want. We fight in secret so that other people can live in peace without fear. Recommendation: continue current assignment." Subject represents optimal psychological profile for classified threat suppression operations. The final document in Folder 7 was Hana's current mission briefing. Operation Silent Guardian Classification. Alpha 7 Council Eyes Only. Duration: ongoing personnel. General Lee Hana, Special Operations Command Mission Mayenta. Folder 8 was different from all the others. Instead of mission reports and kill counts, it contained a single document labeled The Choice. Veltar opened it with hands that would not stop shaking. If you are reading this file, it means I have judged you worthy of knowing the complete truth about how peace is maintained in our galaxy. This decision was not made lightly. For the past 72 hours, I have been evaluating whether you represent a threat to the civilians my actions protect. I have monitored your communications, analyzed your psychological responses to the information in the previous folders, and assessed your likely behavior patterns. You have passed the evaluation. You now face the same choice that every being who learns this truth must make. You can hide this knowledge from your people and allow them to continue sleeping peacefully, believing that the galaxy is naturally safe. Or you can tell them what beings like me do in the darkness to keep their children alive. Both choices have consequences. If you hide the truth, your people will continue to live without fear. They will raise families, create art, build civilizations, and enjoy lives unmarked by the knowledge of how close they constantly come to death. This is a good choice. Most beings who learn this truth choose to protect others from knowing it. If you reveal the truth, your people will understand the real cost of peace. Some will be grateful. Some will be horrified. Some will demand that the secret war be stopped, which would result in millions of deaths when the suppressed threats resurface. Some will demand that their own people be trained to fight in the secret war, which would change their entire civilization. There is a third choice, which I hope you will not make. You could attempt to expose these operations publicly, believing that transparency is more important than the lives these operations protect. This choice would result in chaos, the collapse of current threat suppression systems, and the deaths of approximately 50 million innocent beings in the first year, alone as dormant threats become active. If you make the third choice, I will kill you before you can act on it. This is not a threat. It is a statement of operational necessity. Your life is not worth 50 million other lives. I do not want to kill you. I have read your psychological profile. You are a good being who wants to protect your people. But I will kill you if necessary to protect everyone else's people. Choose wisely. If you choose to hide this knowledge or share it responsibly with trusted leaders, report to the diplomatic quarter bar tomorrow at 1900 hours. We will discuss how you can best serve your people's interests with this new understanding. If you do not appear, I will assume you have chosen the third option. General Lee Hana, Special Operations Command. Below the document was a final file labeled, "For Your Government." Veltar opened it to find a formal diplomatic message. To the Outer Council leadership, your representative has requested a comprehensive assessment of human military capabilities. This assessment has been provided through classified channels to ensure accuracy and security. The human military forces currently maintain active operations in 17 different threat categories that your civilian populations are not aware of. These operations prevent an estimated 2.3 billion deaths annually across all member species. Human forces request continued support for current threat suppression activities. This support can be provided through continued funding for peacekeeping, operations without detailed oversight, diplomatic cover for human personnel operating in sensitive areas, access to intelligence networks that may identify emerging threats, agreement to maintain operational security regarding classified activities. In exchange, human forces will continue to ensure that your people can live in peace without fear. Alternative arrangements can be made if the Outer Council prefers to assume responsibility for threat suppression in their own territories. This would require training approximately 50,000 of your personnel to the same operational standards as current human forces. Training timeline, 15-20 years. Casualty estimates during training, 30-40%. Psychological suitability rate, less than 5% of volunteers. We recommend continuing current arrangements. General Lee Hanna, Human Defense Forces Galactic Council, Military Command. Veltar sat in silence for a long time. The weight of everything he had learned pressed down on him like a physical force. The next morning, he found himself standing outside the diplomatic quarter bar at exactly 1900 hours. His decision had been made the moment he finished reading. Lihana sat at the same place at the bar where this had all begun 5 days ago. She looked exactly the same, quiet, unremarkable, drinking clear liquid that might have been water. Veltar approached slowly and sat on the stool next to her. "I made my choice," he said. "I know," Hanna replied without looking at him. "You have been composing a message to your government for the past 6 hours. Recommendation to continue current arrangements with additional private briefings for senior leadership." Veltar nodded. "My people need to know enough to make informed decisions, but not so much that they cannot sleep at night." "That is the right choice," Hanna said. She finished her drink and signaled for another. "Most species choose the same path when they learn the truth." "How many know?" Veltar asked. "About 300 beings across 47 different species, all in leadership positions, all sworn to operational security." Hanna looked at him directly for the first time. "Welcome to the group of people who understand how peace really works." Veltar gestured for his own drink. The bartender, a friendly being from one of the peaceful inner rim worlds, smiled as he served them. "Does he know?" Veltar asked quietly. "No," Hanna said. "He gets to live a normal life because we do abnormal things. That is the whole point." They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching other beings enjoy their evening. Families shared meals. Couples walked hand in hand. Children played games that would have been impossible during wartime. "I have a question," Veltar said finally. "I probably have an answer. My psychological profile suggests I would have made the third choice, that I would have tried to expose everything publicly. Why did you trust me with this information?" Hanna smiled, the first genuine expression of happiness Veltar had seen from her. "Because you spent 5 days reading about thousands of deaths and your biggest concern was whether I was psychologically healthy. You did not worry about political implications or military advantages. You worried about the person doing the necessary killing." She turned to face him completely. "Beings who care about individual welfare even when learning about massive scales of violence are the ones who can be trusted with massive scales of responsibility. You proved that you understand the cost of these operations in human terms, not just statistical terms." "And if I had failed the evaluation?" Hanna's expression did not change. "You would not have woken up on day 4. Veltar felt another chill, but also a strange sense of safety. Someone was watching, someone who could make the hard choices when they needed to be made. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go back to your normal diplomatic work," Hanna said. "You report to your government that human military capabilities are adequate for current needs. You recommend continued cooperation with human defense forces." She paid for both their drinks and stood to leave. "And if new threats emerge in your territory, you know who to contact." Veltar watched her walk toward the exit. At the door, she paused and looked back. "One more thing," she said. "Your people are good people. They deserve to live in peace. That makes protecting them worthwhile." After she left, Veltar remained at the bar for another hour. He watched the normal evening activities continue around him. Conversations about art and trade and family. Complaints about minor inconveniences. Plans for vacations and celebrations. None of them knew how close they constantly came to losing everything. None of them knew that their peaceful lives were purchased with the lives of beings who chose to harm others. None of them knew that somewhere in the darkness between worlds, people like Lihana were making sure the monsters stayed away from the light. Veltar finished his drink and returned to his quarters to write his report. Recommendation: continue all current arrangements with human defense forces. Their capabilities exceed stated requirements. Additional classified briefings requested for senior leadership only. Personal note: the galaxy is more dangerous than our people know, and safer than our people have any right to expect. This paradox exists because of individuals who have chosen to stand between civilization and chaos. We should be grateful that such individuals have chosen to be guardians rather than conquerors. We should be very grateful that most of them are human. He encrypted the message and sent it through secure channels to his government. Then he activated his personal communication system and called his family on his homeworld. "Hello, Father." His daughter's voice came through clearly. "How are the diplomatic meetings going?" "Very well," Veltar replied, watching peaceful beings walk by his window. "Everything is very peaceful here. How are your children?" "They are perfect," she said. "Little Kethani took her first steps yesterday. She is walking everywhere now. And Morden started school this week. He loves learning about all the different species in the galaxy." "That is wonderful," Veltar said. "Give them my love." After the call ended, he sat quietly in his room. His granddaughter was taking her.